The first part, though, sounds a lot like a Linkin Park song. It's got almost all the same elements.
And they go to the major chords and just get
Only difference really would be, I think, the drum beat
Mm-hmm.
would probably be a little more like metal hip-hop.
Would still be a drum machine, that's for sure. Welcome, everyone, to the world's only Animorphs podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Max.
And we're here with our beautiful Animorphs TV theme song, kind of a crossover, mixed media, if you will. There's TVs, there's books. This series is amazing. We're on book 7 this week in our fun little Animorphs book club. Woohoo. Be a good alternate title for the podcast. The Stranger.
They could have also called this The Choice, don't you think?
It's definitely the thing, yes, because the book is all about the choice that they make in this. This is the first book where the mission isn't like, let's storm, well, it kind of ends up being this, but the whole end mission isn't like, let's run into the Yerk pool or let's go sabotage this thing and then Visser 3 is going to chase us. It's the first one that really brings in different like aspects. Like there's more out there. It's not just Animorphs and Andalites and Yerks and Taxes and Hork-Bajirs. I mean,
to be fair, they do still technically do all that.
That's
but
true.
They condense it into the first like half of the book this time, and then allow for the other half to be this other.
Like the beginning of this book is like the end of other books because they're making a big mission into the Yerk pool. I have some trivia for you. And for everyone, the answer to this can be found in chapter 1 of number 7, The Stranger. What are Rachel's sisters' names? Random trivia for Max. What are Rachel's sisters'
Sarah and Jordan.
Very nice.
Do you know what her dad and her mom's name is?
Whoa, you got me with that one. I should know her dad's name. He's a famous TV morning show guy.
Yeah.
News
and
guy.
Technically, I'm wondering if they have a favoritism for this name because they've already used it before.
Interesting. What is it?
Dan.
Yeah. Okay, so the dad's
There's Dealin' Dan Hawk, and now there's Dan, Rachel's dad.
And they're both on TV, live.
Right.
They're both live on TV. Dealin' Dan Hawk from book 3
One
was
less
doing the live commercial.
than the other, but and especially now.
I wonder if Rachel's dad, Dan, does any.
Naomi is her mother.
That's right. These are good names. This is also a book where it opens up. They're doing a lot of vigilantism and going out there and helping different animals in the wild. Kind of like Marco was. Marco was more helping old people. He was helping like an old human. But the beginning of this book is kind of similar. Hello, computer update. Kind of similar to book 3, where
he's got some humanitarian aspects to him, but he's not completely there.
Yeah, he's working. He's working on it. He will save an old. Marco will save an old man in an alleyway, but he won't necessarily go after a African elephant tamer at the circus or an elephant tamer at the circus and then like basically attack him and scare him, you know?
If he were in the position to, he might.
If he saw like a circus tamer whipping a gorilla or something like that.
Yeah, if he saw it firsthand. Yeah, especially if it were one of his own morphs, he would take. There's like an affinity for it. They each develop for their particular morphs, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like Tobias is particular to a red-tailed hawk, although he does revere and fear the owl.
Yeah.
Spotted or whatever.
Because owls have been known to take out red-tailed hawks.
I love how Rachel and Cassie have both started to pick up already on Marco's change since his book.
Yeah, because they don't know this monumental like thing that Marco found out a few books ago, that his mom, who he thought was dead for 2 years, is actually Visser 1. No one in the group knows except for Jake.
Right.
You know, it seems like he would relay that information. I know it's sensitive information, but wouldn't you want your warriors, your fellow soldiers to know? Because they're soldiers for humanity, and they're a tight team.
I got the impression Jake did want to tell everybody, or he would be in that mindset, except for the fact that Marco specifically directly asked him to keep it hush-hush.
Yeah. You think Jake would secretly tell Cassie and not tell anyone else? If he was going to tell somebody in the group.
It would either be Cassie or possibly even Rachel. I could see it being Rachel. Just like in a moment where she's like really dogging on Marco for some reason or whatever, because they tend to clash the most because they have the most opposite attitudes towards the whole thing at first anyway, and that's the way they seem to think that it still is, but
they're
that's
definitely
what they're
polar
starting
opposites.
to notice is like Marco's actually kind of starting to be a little more gung-ho than he was.
Yeah.
like any amount.
Because in this book, I believe that he and Tobias kind of went on a reconnaissance mission, and they're the ones who they're the ones who kind of brought the situation.
That's how they condensed that part. Instead of having a whole exploded recon mission where they talked about how Tobias and Marco went through that whole ordeal, they just cut straight to the chase of, hey, so we already did this.
So basically, Marco and Tobias found an entrance to the Yerk pool, a new entrance to the Yerk pool, because of course they sealed off the one in the
gap.
Yeah, in the janitor's closet. It's in the gap. Isn't that so funny? Like the door. It's secret entrance.
I feel like Scholastic had some kind of an endorsement deal going on with.
Well, Gap was huge when this book was out. You remember those?
That's true.
Do you remember those Gap commercials where they were like selling these kind of like I don't know what they were, vests?
Them
they were like
and
jackets.
Old Navy were like the
you know what? I'm
dogs.
thinking of Old Navy actually. They're the ones who sold like the fleece kind of jackets without sleeves, you know? Was that Gap or I think that was Old Navy.
Old Navy.
And they would have the commercials where they would dance against a white background.
All kinds of
The Gap.
Wow.
That's so nice.
It was white on white on white.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of white there. So like Marco says in chapter 4, he says, Tobias and I have been working out a pattern of surveillance for the last week. We followed Assistant Principal Chapman everywhere we can. So Tobias tracks him from the air. Then I follow him when he goes into a building. So now Tobias and Marco, who we agreed on episode 3, basically were the most opposite, I think. Well, but either way, that there's a change in their dynamic because now they're working together. The other thing I noticed about this book, Rachel. So in book 2, which is the last time Rachel narrated a book, you had a certain amount of depth in Rachel's relationship with her friend Melissa, you know, Chapman's daughter, you know, and like I remember the moments in that book where Melissa's like crying alone in her room and Rachel is morphing into her cat and like comforting her. So there's like this depth to that. And then in this book, there's also a depth to it,
doesn't it?
Because her dad is moving away.
So you kind of get a better idea of like, oh, okay, she understands a little bit more the feeling of a separation from her father, even though it's more physical than emotional for her.
Yeah.
Because her and her dad still interact.
Yeah, they seem close. They hang out like
very close
during the week or whatever.
Go hiking together.
Go to games.
Yeah.
You know, he seems like a fun guy. You know, like I can tell why he would be divorced from the lawyer. You know, like a TV guy and a lawyer. They had a fun time. He wants to raise a family, but then he gets a wandering eye. Can't keep it in his pants. He's out and about.
He might be a philanderer.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a philanderer. But yeah, you see that he's got a job in another city. And it comes at an interesting time because Rachel is like, she's stressed out from, you know, Animorphs, obviously. She kind of wants an escape. So she has the option now to escape in one way.
Back into the death hole, hell that they describe it. You know?
Yeah, they got to go back into the Yerk pool. So she's like, let me just move away with my dad instead. And here's a thought that I had. If she did choose to move away with her dad, what strategic advantage would the Animorphs have in that point? Or would it even matter because is the Yerk invasion just happening in their town? Or is it all also happening 2,000 miles away wherever she was going to move with her dad?
So I think, yes, it is also happening 2,000 miles
really?
away. I think there's probably, I don't think they're the only, like, they're the epicenter and the start and they're just at the forefront.
But don't you feel like they're the kind of the ground zero of it all? Because that's where Visser 3 always goes.
Yeah, I can see how they would be like ground zero, and based off of the future vision that we get midway towards the end, you know, that's where one of the main Kandrona stations is. Yes. That I like. That's I kind of misspoke earlier. I didn't mean to say that it probably wasn't one of the key monumental ones. It definitely is one of the first ones.
One of the towns.
But I feel like there's definitely more around. By now, I would assume
there's like Visser 19 landing in India just to check out things there.
Like, by the time we're getting to this point, Marco's mom's already been gone 2 years, which means she was already a controller before that.
Good point. There you go. Yes. Max, thinking the good stuff. Okay, so as you alluded to, let's get into it. So in this book, we get to see for the first time, probably the most powerful creature, species, thing, force of nature to exist in the entire series, which is the Ellimist. Yeah, the most powerful entities, the Ellimist.
My God.
I like that. He is a god. They are
Kami.
gods because as we
Kami-sama.
find out later, he's probably not the only one. And even Axe in this, because of course Andalites know about Elemist.
Yeah.
Axe says he is an Elemist.
Yeah, they
he's
know
not
that
the,
it's a species.
Yeah, they call him the Elemist, but Axe I think says a Elemist, and he comes whenever they're stuck to a Taxon's tongue. And the Elemist says, all right, you have a choice. You can either go away with the people you love to a new planet because you're going to lose the Uruk War, or you can stay here and lose the Uruk War. It's time
Comes
stops.
in like Father Christmas or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of like
The
Father Christmas.
Ghost of Christmas Past. Sorry, that's what I meant.
I like how he's like, let me take here. I'll take a physical shape that you can comprehend because he's just like talking in their heads. It's so cool finding
It's
out
not
more
even
and
just
more.
talking in their heads like thought speech. It's like it's almost
It's
more,
a different font.
It made me think of it's a completely different font. It made me think of more along the lines of the way Cassie was trying to describe her conversations with the whale from the message.
Yeah, kind of like just pictures in the head, things you
just
understand.
ideas popping into their head. Yeah.
Do you think they were actually going to die there on the Taxon's tongue? Or do you
If
think,
he
because
hadn't
the whole
have-
thing about the Elements is that we don't interfere, but they kind of do interfere directly. They
Right,
sort of like
yeah.
lead you to choices, which is a constant thing throughout the series with this.
So based off of the way that all those events unfold collectively, I think that originally, technically, yes, they would have, if not all of them, at least one of them would have died at that point. Not necessarily from being devoured by the Taxon at that point. I think they still would have probably demorphed, and they would have busted out and got similar to like they did in the actual scene.
Yeah.
But I think they wouldn't have necessarily seen the escape pod and
Right.
recognized it.
Yeah, yeah,
They would have gotten trapped and run around and either captured right then and there all collectively, and maybe one or two of them die or whatever in the struggle, or like maybe one or two of them also get away if they're lucky, but
because that's what the Elements did. It showed by freezing time, which comes in. Here's the first hint of the Elements in Animorphs. It's this. So they're in the Taxon's tongue in Roachmorph, right? Down there in the Uruk pool. And Jake says, I can't get loose, Jake yelled. In an instant, without warning, death had come for us. I was glued down, helpless, as a Taxon's red tongue sucked back into its mouth. And then, everything, everywhere stopped. And that's the first hint you have of the
Pause.
Elements. Yeah, they're in chapter 12. And then I think it's cool, too, as soon as the time stops, time stops, everything is frozen, and then here comes Tobias in human form again. And then doesn't
what
Rachel go
a
to hug
mind
him?
fuck, right?
I know. Yeah, literally, Tobias is flying, and now he's in human form again.
He's just like,
He tries to
could you
flap
imagine if he
away.
was just like just about to kill something, and he's just like talons raked out with his wings kicked back, trying to break all that speed that he just gathered from being 20 miles, well, not 20 miles, but 20 feet, and then poof, and now he's a human, stumbling, walking again, and he's like sitting there trying to flap his feathers
Because Rachel goes to hug him, and he starts to fly away. That's how I feel when
runs
people
at
come
him
to hug
like-
me. Yeah.
like oh shit, what's the name of that movie?
Max
Blah,
thinks
blah,
of a
da,
movie
blah,
title.
blah, 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 blah. And they run at each other on the beach and they embrace. And
I have to know what this movie is that you're talking about. Somebody out there knows. If you know,
I know what it is. I just can't think of the name.
say,
right now.
describe it a little more, and then someone listening, comment on our Instagram. It's a movie, and people run at each other. What is that? Oh my God! Let's leave it for the listener. Dun, 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 dun. Comment below if you know what that's from. If you remember it, don't say it.
Okay.
Let the listener say it.
That'll
You
be
guys know what it
the
is.
trivia for the listener this week.
Yeah, there you go. But
We tend
Tobias,
to always answer our own trivia during the show. We need to leave something. For the,
yeah, leave something for the listeners. If you know what that is,
Something
comment
for you
below.
guys.
Because it sounds so familiar to me, but I'm like not letting my mind completely think about it. But yeah, Tobias is human, and then basically this is how Axe describes the Elements. And I think this is interesting because this is the first time we learn about this character who I'm surprised it came so early. For some reason, I didn't think we would know about the Elements until later on in the series. Because it
Right.
seems like it was a big reveal at the time, which it was.
Definitely.
But Axe says they're all powerful. They can cross 1,000,000 light years in a single instant. They can make entire worlds disappear. They can stop time itself.
Zeno.
Axe says, "Well, now
Or
who's
an
that?"
angel.
Okay.
Maybe. No, that's another Dragon Ball reference.
Oh, I
you
see.
really got to start watching.
I
that
know,
soon.
man. That's that
It's
might.
like the only other reference I make on this.
I'm telling you, we'll start the world's only Dragon Ball podcast. after we get through all 60 books of the Animorphs,
Oh my god!
which is our pleasure, to be
Dude,
honest with
speaking
you.
of
Love
which,
these
they do
books.
so many like what if fanfics all over the place
For
Dragon Ball.
Animorphs or Dragon
No, for
Ball?
Dragon
Okay.
Ball. So I want to see similar ones for this one. Like I want to see the what if spinoff of like what we were talking about earlier. If Elmist hadn't have stopped time for them right then and there when they were in the Roach Morph on the Taxing Tongue, how would they have ended up handling and what would have happened after that point?
Yeah.
And then what if whenever they get down to like the point later in the book where they're transferred into the future and whatnot, they didn't get transferred back at that point where she was about to just like lay into Visser 3 or Visser 1, whatever
Visser
you want
1,
to
yeah.
refer to him as.
Ooh, then you got to wonder what happened to Visser 1. What happened to Marco's mom?
Is,
See,
is she demoted? Is she promoted? Like that also led me to a series of I Wonder.
Max Wonders, ladies and gentlemen. Max Wonders.
I wonder.
He wonders.
I wonder. What the average lifespan of a Yerk is.
Interesting. Judging from how kind of battle-worn and militaristic Visser 3 and Visser 1 are, I'm going to imagine that they're not like, 5-year-olds. They seem to be, I don't know. I feel like they're older. I feel like it's long. I feel like it's not like a 2-3 year lifespan, But who knows? Maybe they just develop really quickly. What do you think, Max? What do you think?
I think it's many decades. I'm trying to figure out. I can't quite remember yet, and I'm hoping that there's information about it in some of the chronicles that we'll end up reading in the future.
Yes.
If not sooner, hopefully. I think it might even be longer than the average human lifespan. Even I think it's probably closer to what an Andalite's might be.
Yes.
Which I think is also longer than a human's, but I can't remember what it is.
I would think it would be too. It seems like they kind of figured out.
I'm sure we
longevity.
could probably look it up online, but I kind of want
what's
to wait
the fun
and
in
read
that?
it.
Yeah, I like finding out like we did the first time.
Yeah.
That's
A lot
my
of
favorite part about the way we're doing this is we're not like going forward and finding all these answers. We're figuring it out just like when we read it the first time.
Exactly.
There was no subreddits whenever we read it the first
And
time.
it's like in that lifespan, how often do they change hosts? Is it ever voluntary? Like, I mean, other than like whenever they capture somebody, like Visser 3 got his Andalite body or whatever. But outside of that, like, do they ever willingly or voluntarily or just like, man, fuck this thing? And
I bet you every yurt gets a Taxon first.
Yeah, like
or that other creature.
The punishment creatures, like you have to be a Taxon and deal with that hunger and bullshit.
I bet you there's a lot of yurks back on their home planet who never leave. And the ones who leave, the Hork-Bajir controllers, like those, they're the ones who choose to go, almost like they're going to serve, in the army.
That's the other
spin
spinoff I want to see is the point of view from like Edris 336 of the Lunar pool.
We might get a little taste of that in the future,
something like that, where it's the
life of a Yerk.
The life of a Yerk, just on the Yerk home planet still, with all this stuff still occurring, and like maybe they get a little bit of snippets of news,
the nightly news,
or something like that.
To Hork-Bajir,
which also led me to another wonder. How do they communicate? Like when they're just in their normal, more like when they're in the pool and everything.
With
how
each
they
other.
communicate? Yeah, with each other. How do they know, therefore, when their controller specifically is back? Like because they go out to this pool and they've got this big long pier and they lean the controller down next to it and it out of the thing into the. I can do that better.
There you
go.
Nice.
They plop it out into the pool and it swims around for however long it needs to absorb the Kandrona rays, and then comes back eventually. Is like, how does it know? Like, do they have the same kind of internal clock like the Andalites do?
There's got to be some sludge or some mark they leave, like pheromones.
Yeah, is there a pheromone that they leave behind? And then, like, whenever that particular person's ear, like, do they have to keep it the same ear that they crawl in and out of? Like,
you remember when Jake got infested, he'd just fallen into the pool, and that one Yerk was like, "Hey, let me jump in this guy's ear."
Ooh, look, an ear.
Yeah, an ear. So I wonder if he was just like waiting for one. I don't know. That's a good Wonders too.
Piece of candy.
I feel piece of candy. I feel like we may learn some of that in the future as we go on. But back to the Yerk pool, back to the Elamists. Marco makes a good observation after the Elamist talks to them. He says it's like Noah's Ark. The Yerk flood is coming. Load up the boat. Because the Elamist is trying to send them all to this world. So in the moment, all of the Animorphs vote against going off to the other world, or at least they say they want to think about it because they see the drop shaft, and so they run out. And
they all kind of get that. No, they get that. Yeah, like the injured animal syndrome. Like, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
start
like-
talking about.
Like I think Cassie makes the comparison, like when I'm going to pick up a injured animal, it doesn't always want me to
Raccoon,
help
yeah.
it. Yeah, a raccoon. But dude, the part in chapter 15 when Rachel gets lost in her battle morph of the bear, where
Oh,
she
yeah.
morphs into the bear for the first time, she loses control. Yeah, dude, and she just goes crazy. It said the next thing I clearly remember is flying up the long drop shaft. So basically, she just like zoned out, got lost in the bear's confidence, and her anger melded with the bear's
She
anger.
went Super Saiyan.
Yeah, there you go, another Dragon Ball reference. And then Rachel's like trying to attack Jake's tiger morph in the drop shaft. But I do want to say, like, there's one part in this where when they're all kind of running towards the drop shaft in the Yerk pool, Rachel in human morph screams at Jake in human morph, "Jake, get out of here. We'll be okay." Don't you think that's kind of risky to yell in the Yerk pool using his name? Like, first of all, they're all in human morphs. That's kind of risky in the Yerk pool. And then she uses his name. Like, it seems like some of that might be unsafe.
Did she yell it?
She did, yeah. So it's chapter 15 where it says, thanks, Axe. We are trapped, he said. I looked past him. The others had all reached the drop shaft 100 yards away. So, yeah, she yells that right in front of controllers and everything like that. It's kind of risky, isn't it? Kind of uncharacteristic of her, but I guess she was caught in the moment. Maybe things are so loud and they couldn't hear necessarily. You
Maybe
know?
it's just for narrative purposes, and she didn't actually use the word Jake.
Yeah.
And it's one of those details that they changed in order to protect the innocent.
She was actually like, Robert, go ahead. I like this part a couple of chapters later. So basically, like, Rachel's breaking down this whole book. I mean, she's escaping into flying morph, trying to get away. Then the Elements comes along and makes everything way more complicated. You know, I really feel for Rachel here.
I had a very minor grievance with her decision on the grizzly bear and her reasoning for it.
Oh, yeah?
In that she made some statement to the fact that somehow, pound for pound, the grizzly has more power than the polar bear. What I recall, that's actually not true. It's vice versa.
I seem to remember the polar bear
is
being
the larger of the two and bigger and stronger. Therefore, I don't know. Maybe I'm confused. Maybe there was different information.
I know
at the
there. I
time.
feel like polar bears are bigger, but you know, I believe there's a Marco book with a polar morph on it that will kind of one of the later ones, right? Like maybe in the 20s or something like that. Can't wait to get there. We're still so early on, but there's still so much happening. So then, like, Rachel's having this breakdown of like, no, I'm not some stupid old TV character, referring to Xena Warrior Princess, which, like, no kid would get that today. That was an old show when we were young, you know? She's like, the more exits I see, the more scared I get, Rachel says. And then everyone's silent for a long time. And then Marco comes on and goes, Rachel's losing it. If she loses it, how long are the rest of us going to last? You know, because I like how he's joking. Like, Rachel's having this heavy breakdown, and he's just making a joke right in front of her, like, not taking it
only
seriously.
thing he can do. Sarcasm's his coping method. I totally feel you, Marco.
And then, dude, this is the first time in the book. You know, coming up next, as far as like what we're reading next we are going to read Megamorphs because that is the, you know, next in the series. And in Megamorphs, there's some time travel, but in this book, so this is the first instance of time travel or like cross-dimensional travel. And I think that this scene, when the Elemis takes them to the future, or to one possible future,
He just slips in and out of the air, basically,
whenever he wants. And he's always listening.
Yeah.
He's always listening, too, because they're sitting there having a conversation.
Like God or Santa.
Yeah, he's a Santa God. He's a Santa Jesus God. But like when they're sitting there in the barn and Jake's just like, "Do you hear us, Elements? We're ready to." He's like, "All right, let's show you the future." You know, they just kind of jump in.
Tommy Claus. There we go.
And then there's the scene where he takes them to this alternate reality and they make observations of the sky. And she says it seems slightly yellowish.
Kind
the
of
air
like
smells
moldy
funny.
urine.
Kind of like what?
Moldy urine.
Like moldy urine. It's a moldy urine world. Moldy Chondrona urine. Why do you think the sky was that way? Did they install a Chondrona like in the atmosphere?
I think
Is that what happened?
That they did a lot of basically like akin to clear cutting for the environment. Did a lot of changing to it to make it more like their own home world.
Yeah.
And that has necessarily destroyed the beauty and the art, as the Elements has put it. Because a lot of the color of the sky and everything comes from the color of the water and the reflection thereof. So if a lot of that water or a lot of the water that's on the surface now is more that sludgy, yellowy gray that is their pool, that would make sense.
Less
that
blue,
it's
more yellow.
Mm-hmm.
They also seem to just leave dead bodies lying around. They see their dead history teacher, you know, like
or
Christ.
so they suppose, sitting in the spot that she used to be.
Yeah.
And the time skip seems to be, because if you have to guesstimate, they're probably somewhere between 14 and somewhere around the 14 to 17.
Between 13 to 16, I'd say, during this entire
13
series.
to 16, yeah. At least right now.
Right.
Because I think the series goes on for quite a while through their life. But like in
can't
this
wait,
instance, she's guesstimating herself to be about 22, 23.
Yes,
the future
because Rachel comes face to face with herself. Yeah, and so
let's give it anywhere from 7 to 10 year time skip, you know?
And in this alternate
7,
future
10,
where they're going through the streets of downtown, they describe how entire skyscrapers are gone, and there's like wormholes going in and out of the buildings, Taxons going through little wormholes.
Oh man, that would be a great illustration to see from
dude from old Chris Grimes.
Yeah, from Chris.
That'd be badass. So I thought before Rachel confronts herself, they're walking through, they're going downtown, they're just like walking through their entire town, and I see some heavy clues as to where the Animorphs are here, because it says they're walking through downtown. They see skyscrapers, and then they refer to the tallest building in town being the EGS Tower.
EGS.
So there you go. All we need to do to find out where Animorphs are is find out what EGS is, find out which cities have EGS towers, and there you go. Unless it's actually like SGE, and they're telling us wrong.
Right. No, I also saw something the other day. I'm trying to remember what I was looking up, but I saw something that said that they were near the Pacific Ocean as like opposed to the
Atlantic,
yeah. So I'm like, I wonder where they got that information from, that they are determining that it was absolutely the Pacific Ocean that they were at.
Pacific makes sense.
That, they would have to be West Coast,
because there's mountain forests.
The whole California type of like theory that we've been running with from the beginning.
We're going with West Coast on this, but that's where they see this big Cadrona, and then like you said, Rachel comes face to face with herself in a few years. She's infested. She's a controller now. Visser 3 is now Visser 1. We don't know where Visser 1 is. I would love to see it from Marco's standpoint.
Right.
And from Marco's view at that point in time when he sees that Visser 3 is now Visser 1, and he's like, what happened to my mom? You know?
Right,
like,
just get a little like sidebar of each of their takes during some of the more climactic moments.
I feel like that's how Megamorphs is set up, right? Like each chapter, isn't each chapter a different narrator?
I think that's
what it is. That's gonna be cool. That's the one we got for this. But yeah, then that's got to be weird for Rachel to see that. She says, "I stared at the human. She was a pretty young woman, maybe 20 or 22 years old, blonde hair, cut short, no makeup, clothes were plain, very unlike Rachel." And then she's like, "Hello, Rachel."
Yeah.
The woman said to me, "Hello, Rachel."
Looking more like a Sonya Blade version of Rachel now.
Sonya Blade. I haven't heard that in a long time. What's that from? What's that a reference to?
Mortal Kombat.
Dude, I haven't heard Sonya Blade in many years. That would be, if this were Mortal Kombat, Marco,
looks the most like him anyway.
I think would definitely be Liu Kang. Rachel would be Sonya Blade.
Definitely. Cassie would definitely be Cassie.
There you go. Axe would be Scorpion.
I'm pretty sure that's her name, Cassie. Cassie Briggs. Yeah.
That works out too well. I hope there's a crossover. Oh, dude.
Oh, Tobias would be Takada, I think.
Nice. There you go. If you weren't expecting to hear a Mortal Kombat Animorphs crossover today, well, that's the beauty of this podcast.
Jake would be Johnny Cage, I think.
Yeah, he's like the kind of the main guy.
Right.
Like
except for
John
the fact
Cena
that Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade have the whole love thing, in which case you would kind of have to make Tobias Johnny Cage in order to let Sonya be Rachel.
Yeah.
But if you're not worried about that dynamic and you just want to change the characters altogether to fit.
We'll get this worked out. We'll match up the Animorphs with Mortal Kombat characters before too long. We digress. So in Chapter 25, they're going up to the EGS Tower in an elevator. So what exactly is it? Yeah, that's so funny, dude. The way she describes that. It's the elevator scene from every movie as they get on it, because it says, "The ride seemed to be taking forever. I watched the counter tick off the floors, 21, 22. And then Jake is like, "So, anyone seen any good movies lately?" And she says, I want to go see that new Keanu Reeves movie. He's supposed to be cute, right? And there's like making these like it's that
I love how
classic.
Keanu Reeves is even in the Animorphs.
Yeah. Well, it reminded me whenever the
Just
Elemist
how fucking iconic is Keanu Reeves. Oh, he's even in the Animorphs.
whenever the Elemist is showing them that other world with the yellow sky, it makes me think of that scene in The Matrix.
Kind of, yeah.
You know? And I wonder if they're talking about the Matrix movie in this, because it was around 99. We see when this book was published.
First Scholastic Printing, April 97.
Okay, so that was before Matrix, because I'm pretty sure Matrix was 99.
Yeah, 99.
Yeah, so it was before that. There
Yep.
you go. There you go. Everyone stole it from Animorphs. But yeah, there's that scene where they get in the elevator. Suddenly I realized there was music playing in the elevator, the usual stupid elevator music.
That reminds me of the Jurassic Park video game from Super Nintendo, where there would be this part where you would be inside of a building trying to like eliminate all the velociraptors or spitting dinosaurs or whatever, and you would have to travel from one level to the other in an elevator, and they would have the cheesy elevator music going the whole time.
Why is that such a funny movie motif? I think it's because a lot of the times you'll have to, in movies, they have to get up to the next floor, and there's no getting around. Like, well, they got to take the elevator. I mean, how many movies have that scene, have that elevator scene? I remember one in, like, Spider-Man, the Jurassic Park Super Nintendo video game, which counts too. It's a storyline. I like the part in chapter 26 where they get off the elevator and the Hork-Bajir see them, and the Hork-Bajir are like, kill the Gaffner Andalites, as they use a mixed language. Kill Fragant Andalite, Halaf, kill all. It sounds so like cussing. Kill the Gaffner.
It's like Joe Pesci trying to fucking
kill it, friggin' got it, Andalite, Halaf, kill all. In Home Alone. That's hilarious. And then they really go at it as far as fighting. Like, all these people are like, you know, all the Animorphs are like, this is the first, like, huge battle. They almost died twice in battle in this book. Like, this was like I said, this was the most
near-death
eventful
experiences.
book. Yeah, super close to death experiences. I think it's a book that has a different kind of action than what we're used to seeing, adds an entire new dimension with the Elements now being involved, and of course they end up...
The whole world of Animorphs just exploded out.
Yes. And this is one of the first books that's like, okay, this is way different from like a sci-fi series. I think we forget how different a sci-fi series this Animorphs series is. And it's because of stuff like this, where they bring in some otherworldly, godlike figure to interfere with the story. And then the way they hint, this foreshadowing, I love this. Like, after this epic battle, you know, where they have to like demorph back to human and then morph back to to their battle morphs, and then that's how they like win this battle. And then there's this great foreshadowing paragraph after they destroy the Kandrona ray, and the Elemist like acknowledges that, like, yeah, you're pretty observant. I was kind of like playing games with you. And after Rachel has this realization of like butterflies, like she's the butterfly who started the typhoon.
Pretty little butterfly.
There's this paragraph that's like, at first we saw no evidence that the Yeerks were suffering.
Yes.
I don't know how they did it, but the Yeerks managed to maintain. It wasn't until later that we learned we had done them terrible damage, but that is another story. I love that.
I
it's
want
like,
that
oh my
story.
God.
That's another I can't remember if that actually gets addressed later.
I'm sure it does. It has to,
but,
right?
Right? Yeah, you would think so, especially with the amount of deal that they make out of it.
Right.
But, authors sometimes. And if they didn't, there better be a fanfic for it.
There has to be. We'll have to notate that. Is there a follow-up? Because, of course, we're going from the beginning of the series. We haven't read this since we were, 11.
Wheel odds.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
So I don't remember if they do follow up on that, but I really hope they do. But that makes me so excited. And as a kid, like, I think this is the best book up to this point. I think 7 is the best one.
Yeah.
I like 3 a
love
lot,
the
too.
Elemist. I love the introduction of that character.
The whole, like, alternate dimension.
How expansive it makes the whole Animorphs world now.
Yeah.
Because before, it was already, intergalactic at the very least.
Right.
But you get the impression that, for some reason, the Andalites are somehow still in our galaxy. Like they're just in a different world somewhere in our galaxy.
But
not
they're
even outside of our galaxy, else in anywhere else in the universe, just within the realm of our galaxy.
I feel like they're not there.
You don't?
Yeah, I feel like they're not. I feel like they're far away, another galaxy, fighting another fight, and that's going to take them a long time to get to our galaxy. Because I feel like they travel so fast, it's going to be a while before we see any more Andalite ships. But I feel like they travel so fast that if they were in our galaxy, they could be here. It's like going across the block, across the street.
Maybe. Who knows?
And that's what we're waiting for.
Maybe I'm imagining a different scale. I think maybe that's part of the expansion that I need to take account of. I'm seeing like from planet to planet being across the block and on the other side of the galaxy being,
we have
other side of town kind of shit.
We have different viewpoints on the scale of Animorphs, but it's all up in the air, But of course,
still conjecture at this point until we see otherwise.
Until we see otherwise, someday we'll know it all. But of course, there's Rachel's personal journey, sort of the B storyline in this, or maybe the A storyline, where she does decide to not go with her dad, who's being pretty selfish, by the way. He's kind of being a selfish dad. He's like, I want you to come with me because I'm lonely. The philanderer. He just can't be alone. It's like, I'm not sure I'm a huge fan. I think he comes into play later on in the series too. I think we see a little more.
I think we see both of them later on in the series. I think,
seems like Rachel's
way later in the series.
Maybe Rachel's books are always like family stuff, because I do remember her sisters coming into play later on. Yeah. Something about a TV set, but we'll get there. But then Rachel comes very close to telling her dad about everything in her own way.
Right. She just kind of jokingly is like, we just got to go save the world.
Yeah. He's like, I understand you probably have something very important to do with your friends. She's like, absolutely. We have to save the world. Wow. And then it's beautiful, man. At the end, like Tobias is watching that whole interaction with her and her dad. And he's like, you coming, Rachel? And she nods her head. He's like, yep, I'm coming. I'm coming to fly with you. That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Like, I love this series, bro.
Yeah, man. I had a few more wonderings.
Okay, what you got? Max Wonders.
Yerk side of things. Mostly dealing with like their names. So like whenever they get promoted and their name changes, is it only based off of certain levels of rank? Like, do they only go from being Innis 226 corporal or admiral Innis 226 or so on and so forth until they get to Visser, and then it's okay, now your new identity is Visser 10, Visser 3, Visser 1, whatever.
I think the one they like Innis 226, I think when he's born, he's categorized and labeled as Innis 226, and that's it. He keeps that. But I feel like once you get into Visser ranks, you're Innis 226, like your name is Joe, and you're Visser, which is like you're a commander. So your name's Joe, and you're a lieutenant. Your name's Innis 226, you're a Visser. I think that's the way it goes because, like, I just feel like they're all categorized as soon as they're born. It seems very like stringent. Yeah, like hurricanes, exactly.
Okay, that was another one. Do you think that the pool that they're born into becomes their surname, so to speak? And I wonder, how does that naming scheme, like, how does that, because we're getting, like, our language translated version of their name.
You're right,
That's obviously not how it's originally pronounced in their language, whatever that would be.
And it would be weird if Yerks had the exact same numbers that we have.
Right, yeah. Where do they get the Arabic numbers from?
Yeah. So it's all like some of it I'm sure is lost in translation, because they don't.
Maybe that was all the
like
Elmist. Maybe that's why everybody shares the same. He's like, let's just make this shit simple this round.
Maybe
everybody shares the same numbering system. Everybody.
I mean, obviously, K.A. Applegate is the Elmist,
isn't she though?
Maybe
David is the.
You love referencing David. I love that. I had a
not the character. Isn't that her husband's name? What is
it? Yeah. Wait, is that her husband's name? Michael Grant.
Michael
Grant.
That's what it is.
Michael, for Michael.
Not David. Michael.
Yeah.
One of those.
It'd be weird if she named that
Michael
character
David.
As long as we're Michael J. David. As long as we're doing a couple of wonders, I have this wonder, and it comes from page 11. So early on in the first scene, when she's trying to teach the carnival guy not to use a cattle prod on the elephants, and she says to him, "No more cattle prods, no more pain of any kind. Do you understand me?" She says that in thought speech. So my question is, does your thought speech sound like your voice? Like, would he be like, why is there a young girl talking to me in my head?
Right.
Or can you make it sound different ways?
Yeah, can she make it sound like Miss Doubtfire? No more cattle prods.
That kind of sounded like like Mario a little bit, you know. I don't know. It's good stuff though, man. Coming up next episode is going to be our.
Hey, and the more cattle prods.
It was going to be our. Well, okay. So next episode we're going to do a live stream.
Yeah.
Of
next
Megamorphs.
Episode, everybody tune in for the live stream of Megamorphs.
Follow go subscribe to the world's only Animorphs podcast YouTube page. Also, subscribe to Only Annie Pod on Instagram and go down below and comment about the movie that we were talking about earlier that Max was humming the theme song to. And yes, guys, everybody remember to, I like it. As always, remember, together we fight. Nice.